Hello, BookTube. Welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is Fresh Red Kills. So on this edition of Fresh Red Kills, I'm going to go through my the things I've been reading lately, and I'm also going to be doing a very short book haul. So first, what I've been reading this week, I did finish reading 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup. I don't know how much introduction this one needs, but originally published in 1853, the account of Solomon Northup, who was a free man from New York, who was essentially tricked and kidnapped and sold into slavery, and spent 12 years in servitude until he was finally given back his freedom. I said published in 1853. It was a decent hit when it first came out, but then it relatively quickly went into obscurity, and it was largely unknown for maybe about a century after the Civil War. I'd seen the movie, the film version of this, when it first came out. I forget exactly what year, but wasn't too long ago, but long enough for me to be a little bit, hazy on the details. And this being a first-hand account, I knew that what I was going into was going to be heavy. I didn't know if I was going to find it emotionally effective, but there were times when I did. When I had spoken, I think my Fresh Red Kills last week, we saw a mother separated from her children as they were sold out, right before our eyes, and that was terrible. But there's other scenes like that, and they're written in a very emotional way. We have, of course, the whipping of Patsy, and even just his recounting of the moment when he's free is very emotionally charged. The way that it's told, and there is some beautiful writing actually in this in a lot of ways. Some of it's fairly straightforward, but it's very well done. I knew that just by the subject matter, I would have been engaged by this. But I actually found the writing very compelling as well in a lot of ways. In the beginning, it was very much like just catch up with his life up until the point when he's kidnapped. Sometimes they go into litigation. Sometimes he's talking about how he was making traps to catch fish. So not every detail is going to be charged with with emotional resonance. But when they happen, they really are. So yeah, I'm really glad that I read this. I had gotten in a recent book haul and been wanting to read it for a long time anyway. Of course, it's February here in the U.S. It's Black History Month, and I was at first resistant to read something involving slavery on Black History Month. Not because it's not important, but it just seemed like just the kind of the very darkly obvious choice. I would have liked to almost read something a little bit more hopeful of mankind. But yeah, I really like this, and the thoughts that I kept having throughout this is how things can go so terribly wrong when you begin with a false assumption, right? So in this case, it's white supremacy, black inferiority. To begin with that premise and then to wrap a society around it. Of course, it's not the only historical time period where things like this, go so terribly wrong on false premises. I kept thinking of, like somebody like Galileo imprisoned for saying that the earth revolves around the sun, or the hysteria at Salem, with spectral evidence and the assumptions that they had, and, leading to 19 people, hanged or otherwise killed, or, even today, to be a sane person in North Korea must feel like a form of insanity. And when you think about that false assumption and the entire system that was surrounded, that slavery supported, it's really incredible. And the other thing that I really took from this was it gave me an appreciation for how difficult it would have been to escape. Just how much the odds were stacked against them. Even if they managed to run away and the dogs didn't tear into them, where he was, it was a bayou. So just, the natural world is hostile. They don't know anybody outside of the town limits. Every white person that they meet is going to exploit them or capture them in some way. You think about how incredibly difficult it would have been just to get any sense of trying to escape from there. So anyway, that gave me a really good appreciation for it. But yeah, again, really glad I read this one. The next thing that I started reading, I don't have the cover on it right now, but Warfare and Weapons in Dynastic Egypt. This is a arms and armor history of Egypt, and I'm about halfway through, and I'm enjoying it. I do have there are some things that have given me pause here and there. It does feel like a work that was written. Sorry, I'm trying to get some kind of visual to give you while I'm talking. It does feel like a work that was written for fellow Egyptologists and then converted into something more for popular appeal, which it walks an awkward line sometimes with that. The author, Rebecca Dean, she does have a habit of just kind of mentioning other scholars by last name without any kind of introduction. It threw me off, especially in the beginning. I think it was in the first chapter. I turned the page. Yeah, this is in Weapons of Warfare. I turned the page and it just says, Curto provides 4 specific reasons as to why the Egyptians went to war. And I don't know who Curto is. I had to go check the endnotes to find out this was a historian, I think writing in the 70s. So she doesn't introduce any of the people that she's talking about. I don't know what their specialization is. I don't know when they're writing this stuff. If she's talking about historians who are presently still working, if it's past historians. So there's certainly an assumption on the reader of knowing these people who I'm guessing are well known in Egyptology. So that can be a little bit jarring sometimes. And there was at least one instance where she's talking about shields that had me confused. She talks about Egyptians having these, full body size shields. But when she's talking about this image especially, she says, this can be seen in one of the paintings at the site of El Bersha, where one of the soldiers carrying a man-sized shield is not holding a weapon. Figure 3-2, and that's this figure here. Sorry, trying to get that on there. Where she says that the figure is not holding a weapon. The whole idea of this conversation was that these shields would have been too unwieldy and large to actually have a weapon and a shield. So you would have had two hands for these weapons. But this figure looks like he's holding an axe. So I don't know. She's saying that figure is not holding a weapon, but it looks clear like he's holding an axe. I don't know. Little things like that I was finding confusing. There's definitely a lot of good information in here. I am enjoying it. I am learning a lot. But, I do wish that it was a little bit more novice-friendly, a little more introduction to who we're talking about and what relevance they have to the conversation. But it is still very informative. And I am learning a lot. And I'm about halfway through it now. So that's what I've read. I also do want to do some updates about the podcast that I'm a co-host of, the HORRORCAST. And this past week we published an episode because it's Women in Horror Month. We did an episode spotlighting Karen Black, the actress. So we looked at 1973's The Pix, which is kind of this occult crime thriller, which, from Canada, it was okay. Karen Black was very good in it, but it was kind of a muddled movie. And then we looked at 1975's Trilogy of Terror, the anthology TV horror film with 3 stories from Richard Matheson. And that was definitely a fun movie. So that's our latest episode. If you're a horror fan, want to check that out. And the last thing I'll show is just a very quick book haul. I did get stuff in from some university presses that I had placed orders through. The first one, I guess I'll talk about, actually relates kind of to my it's 12 Years a Slave in a lot of ways, and also my other interests. This is from University of North Carolina Press. This is Tales from the Haunted South: The Dark Tourism and Memories of Slavery from the Civil War Era, by Tia Miles. So this says, in this book, Tia Miles explores the popular yet troubling phenomenon of ghost tours, frequently promoted and experienced at plantations, urban manor houses, and cemeteries throughout the South. As a staple of the tours, guides entertain paying customers by routinely relying on stories of enslaved black specters. But who are these ghosts? Examining popular sites and stories from these tours, Miles shows that haunted tales routinely appropriate and skew African American history to produce representations of slavery for commercial gain. In an inclusive and engaging work, Miles uses these troubling cases to shine light on how we feel about the Civil War and race, and how the ghosts of the past are still with us. So again, combining my interest in ghost, horror, spectral studies, and also history and memory. So pretty short work. It's only a little over 100 pages, but I feel like it might be a nice segue from 12 Years a Slave. Another one from the University of North Carolina Press, also related to memory, and this is Gary Gallagher, a very prominent Civil War historian. This is Causes Won, Lost, and Forgotten: How Hollywood and Popular Art Shape What We Know About the Civil War. It says more than 60,000 books have been published on the Civil War. Most Americans, though, get their ideas about the war, why it was fought, what was won, what was lost, not from books, but from movies, television, and other popular media. In an engaging and accessible survey, Gary W. Gallagher guides readers through the stories told in recent film and art, showing how these stories have both reflected and influenced the political, social, and racial currents of their times. I'm a history buff and a film buff, and relating to historical memory. This is definitely one that I'm hoping will be a home run for me, and certainly a very respected historian. And the last one that I got is from Princeton University Press. They were having a 50% off, there's a 50% off coupon that I got from them. So I got The Age of the Vikings by Anders Winroth. And this is one that I had seen recommended by Jackson Crawford. When I saw this was 50% off from Princeton, I definitely grabbed this. Nice general history. It says, the Vikings maintain their grip on our imagination, but their image is too often distorted by myth. It is true that they pillaged, looted, and enslaved, but they also settled peacefully and traveled far from their homelands in swift and sturdy ships to explore, period. The Age of the Vikings tells the full story of this exciting period in history, drawing on a wealth of written, visual, and archaeological evidence. Anders Winroth captures the innovation and pure daring of the Vikings without glossing over their destructive heritage. He not only explains the Viking attacks, but also looks at Viking endeavors in commerce, politics, discovery, and colonization, and reveals how Viking arts, literature, and religious thought evolved in ways unequaled in the rest of Europe. The Age of the Vikings sheds new light on the complex society, culture, and legacy of these legendary seafarers. Just one of my favorite historical periods and historical cultures to read about, and a nice, very modern, new, not the newest, but very recent survey history, and one that, as far as I understand, is very well respected. So this will be a good one. So there's a tow truck outside. I see some blinking lights. And that's it. That's what I read, and that's what I've gotten. Until next time, thanks.